Your intelligence isn't fixed, and a few ordinary daily habits erode it faster than anything else. Most people do at least 3 of them before lunch. You won't feel it happening. That's the strange part. Your brain doesn't send a warning when it's getting duller. It just gets quieter, slower to catch what it used to catch, a little foggy around the edges of your own thoughts. And most people blame age, or stress, or sleep, or the news cycle. But research on cognition tells a different story. The mind doesn't decline in one dramatic drop. It leaks through small, invisible habits repeated so often they become invisible to you. Habits that feel like rest. Habits that feel like rest. Habits that feel like being informed. Habits that feel like harmless little breaks. And the sharpest people in the room aren't necessarily born sharper. They've just quietly stopped doing these things. So today, we're going to name them. 7 ordinary habits that psychologists and cognitive scientists keep pointing to as the quiet thieves of clear thinking and the reframe that turns each one around. Not to shame you. You didn't design a world engineered to hijack your attention, but to hand you back the parts of your mind you didn't realize you were losing. Because once you can see the pattern, you can't unsee it, and that alone is often enough to start reversing it. Sign 1. You reach for your phone the second your mind has nothing to do, standing in line waiting for the kettle, sitting at a red light. The pocket check has become a reflex faster than thought. It feels harmless. It's actually where a lot of your thinking used to happen. Cognitive scientists talk about the default mode network, the quieter background system in your brain that switches on during unfocused moments and quietly does some of your most important work, consolidating memories, connecting distant ideas, generating the kind of insight that seems to arrive from nowhere. Every time you fill that pause with a scroll, you interrupt that network mid-sentence. The insight that was almost forming dissolves. Do it 100 times a day, and you don't just lose 100 small ideas. You lose the muscle that makes ideas in the first place. From the outside, it looks like you're being productive with dead time. In your brain, it looks like you're paving over the exact soil where original thoughts grow. The people who feel mentally sharp usually aren't smarter. They've just learned to let boredom finish its sentence. And the next habit is the one that hides inside things you're proud of. Sign 2. You mistake constant input for thinking. Podcasts on the commute, an audiobook while you cook, 3 articles skimmed with your morning coffee, a video essay playing while you fold laundry. It feels intellectual. It feels like growth. But intake is not thought, and the research on learning is unusually clear about this. Ideas don't imprint when you consume them. They imprint when your mind is forced to reconstruct them. Psychologists call this the generation effect. The mental effort of producing an idea, even clumsily, cements it far more than passively hearing it explained. If you never pause long enough to explain what you just heard, to argue with it, to link it to something you already know, your brain files it under briefly touched rather than understood. So you feel well read and stay strangely unchanged. From the outside, it looks like you're constantly learning. Inside, you're often just being narrated to. Trade even a fraction of your input time for reflection, and the same content starts leaving fingerprints on how you actually think. The next one is subtler, and probably the one you'll defend hardest. Sign 3. You outsource small mental effort to your devices. Phone numbers, directions, spelling, quick arithmetic, the name of that actor, the year that thing happened. The moment friction appears, your thumb moves. It feels efficient. It's actually a slow trade. Researchers have described what's often called Google effect or digital amnesia, the tendency to remember where information is stored rather than the information itself. That trade would be fine, except memory isn't just storage. Retrieval is a workout. Every time you strain to pull a fact from your own head, you strengthen the very networks that let you think on your feet, connect ideas, and hold a nuanced argument in working memory. Outsource that strain often enough, and the muscle atrophies. From the outside, it looks like you're being smart with your time. Inside, you're quietly losing the ability to think without a search bar open. Sharpness isn't refusing tools. It's refusing to reach for them before your own mind is tried. And speaking of the mind trying, the next habit sabotages that in the most modern way possible. Sign 4. You keep half doing several things at once. A tab open for work, a chat window pinging, a video playing in the corner, your phone face up beside the keyboard so you can catch anything that lights up. You call it multitasking. Cognitive scientists don't because, strictly speaking, the human brain doesn't multitask on cognitive work. It task switches rapidly and pays a tax every single time. That tax has a name in the research: switch cost. Each hop leaves a residue of the previous task clinging to your attention, so you arrive at the new one already diminished, thinking with a mind that's still half somewhere else. Do this for hours and you don't feel dumber. You feel busy, but the depth of thought you're capable of has quietly collapsed. Complex problems need a mind that can stay in one place long enough to see the whole shape of them, not one that keeps snapshotting the surface. From the outside, chronic switching looks like high output. Inside, it's shallow output produced by a tired, fragmented processor. The people who seem to think in unusual depth are almost always doing something almost countercultural, one thing, for a long time, on purpose. The next one is the habit disguised as relaxation. Sign 5. You use short-form video as your primary way to rest. You tell yourself it's just 10 minutes. It's rarely 10 minutes, and even when it is, 10 minutes of algorithmically tuned novelty is not rest for the brain, it's a sprint. Neuroscientists studying reward and habituation have watched this pattern for years. Rapid, unpredictable hits of stimulation train the brain to expect that pace everywhere else. Then you open a book or spreadsheet or a real conversation with someone you love, and your attention keeps twitching for the next hit that isn't coming. It's not that you've become lazy. Your baseline for what counts as interesting has been artificially lifted, and everything at human speed now feels flat by comparison. From the outside, it looks like harmless downtime. Inside, it's a slow recalibration of your patience, and patience is the substrate of every deep thought you'll ever have. Real rest, the kind that actually restores thinking, tends to be boring on purpose. A walk without earbuds, a window, a cup of tea, and your own uninterrupted mind. And the next habit is one almost nobody sees as a habit at all. Sign 6. You've stopped disagreeing with why you consume. Your feeds know you now, your friends mostly agree with you, your news sources mostly confirm you, even your search results curve toward what you already believe. This is comfortable. It is also, from the brain's perspective, a slow shrinking of the space where actual thinking happens. Psychologists have long documented confirmation bias, the pull toward information that flatters what you already think, and the internet has quietly perfected the delivery system for it. You don't have to seek an echo chamber anymore. It arrives curated on the screen you're already looking at. Thinking is not the storage of correct opinions. Thinking is the friction of a real idea meeting a real counter-idea inside one head. When that friction disappears, so does the practice of updating, refining, changing your mind, which is essentially the practice of intelligence itself. From the outside, a curated feed looks like a considered worldview. Inside, it's often just a well-decorated echo. The rare habit is small and uncomfortable. Reading someone thoughtful you disagree with, all the way through, without composing your rebuttal in your head. Try it once, and you'll feel your mind stretch in a way it hasn't in years. And the last one is the one that quietly makes all the others worse. Sign 7. You've traded real sleep for enough sleep. You get 6 hours and function. You get 5 and cope. You've told yourself you're one of those people who don't need much, or that you'll catch up on the weekend, or that the deadline this week was an exception, even though last week was also an exception. The sleep research disagrees with almost everyone who says this. Consolidation of memory, emotional regulation, the pruning of useless neural connections, the strengthening of useful ones. This is not what your brain does after everything else. It's a huge portion of what your brain does. Full stop. And it happens in the sleep you keep shaving off the edges of. Chronic mild sleep debt doesn't feel like exhaustion. It feels like a slightly worse version of you that you've mistaken for the real one. Slower word retrieval. Shorter fuse. Weaker judgment on things you'd normally see clearly. A vague low-grade dimness you've started calling your personality. From the outside, it looks like grit. Inside, it's a brain running its most important maintenance in half shifts, night after night, and quietly losing ground. There is almost no habit in this entire list that returns as much thinking to you, as fast, as an extra 90 minutes of genuine sleep. I'll step back for a moment. Look at those 7 again as a set. What's striking is how consistently they get misread. As being informed, being productive, being relaxed, being first, being productive, being relaxed, being efficient, being open-minded, being tough. Every single one wears the costume of a virtue. That's why they're so hard to notice, and why the sharpest people you know tend to look, from the outside, a little strange, a little slower to answer, a little more comfortable with silence, a little less impressed by their own feeds, a little more protective of their sleep than seems reasonable, a little more willing to sit through a boring afternoon without reaching for anything. They're not performing intelligence, they're refusing the small trades that quietly cost it. That's the whole trick, and it's almost embarrassingly unglamorous once you see it. And if you recognize yourself somewhere in this 3, 4, maybe more of these, please don't hear it as an indictment, hear it as the good news it actually is. Your mind isn't broken. It's leaking through habits that were designed, in many cases, by very smart people paid very well to make sure these habits are exactly this hard to put down. The fact that you can now see the leak is already the first repair. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to stop losing on autopilot. Pick one. Just one. Not 7. One habit, soften for a single week, and watch what comes back. The idea you almost had in the shower. The name you almost remembered without checking. The book you almost finished before the phone won. The conversation that almost went somewhere real before a notification pulls you out of it. Those aren't lost. They're waiting on the other side of a habit you can genuinely afford to loosen. Which of the 7 felt most like a mirror for you? The phone reflex, the constant input, the outsourced memory, the silent switching, the short form scroll, the curated feed, or the shaved down sleep? Tell me in the comments. I read every reply, and honestly, the pattern in those answers is often more interesting than the video itself. If you want to sit with this a little longer, there's a companion piece I made on the quiet signs of a genuinely rare mind. It pairs almost too well with this one, and a lot of you have told me it reframed how you see yourself in a way this one only starts. And if this way of thinking about thinking is your kind of thing, subscribe and turn the notification on. I decode one hidden pattern of the mind each week, the small, unglamorous ones the internet keeps missing. And I'd rather you didn't miss the next one. Because in the end, intelligence isn't something you're given once and keep. It's something you protect quietly, and the small choices no one is watching you make.